Welcome to the Vinyl Files, everybody. As collectors, we all have them, and every time we walk into a record store and we browse through the aisles and bins, we hope we're going to gasp with excitement and do a little happy dance because we found something that we've been searching for possibly years. So since I need a little bit of a mental break, planning a wedding is a lot of work, we're going to talk about some of my White Whale records. And make sure to comment down below, what are your top 3 White Whale records that you've been searching quite a while for? And don't forget to subscribe to the channel so you don't miss when I put out new videos. So, in no particular order, because my Discogs doesn't put things in alphabetical order, we're gonna start off with Everything Feels Better Now by From Indian Lakes. I really like Joey Vannucci, and this is his solo project. And From Indian Lakes is so chill and so just like melody conscious and just like a really solid, innovative band. And I would love to have this in my collection, as well as Absent Sounds and The Man with Wooden Legs, but that hasn't received a vinyl pressing, and I really hope it does in the future. Next up is Hail Stan by Periphery. This is the first Periphery album that I was ever excited for, like, when it was coming out, because I discovered them relatively soon before this came out. With Periphery 3, I really liked that album, and I have it now, and Hail Stan is just such a great album. I think that's Periphery at their absolute finest, and It's Only Smiles is such a good song. Everything on this is so good, but that one really sticks out to me. I hope this gets a repress soon, or I stumble across a copy. What a bunch of brilliant musicians. Forward by Disperse. This album is such an interesting one. Disperse is a really great, like, progressive band from Poland, and their guitar player Jakub Zajtecki goes out and does his own thing, and now he's not a part of Disperse anymore. This is actually an older album. His influence really shines through on this album, and it works really well with the other members of the band. If you're looking to get into Disperse, I would say check out the song Tether. It is a great song off of this album. It's got some really cool, like, pop hooks in it. I think it would just be, one, really cool to own, but also I would like to see them get a little bit more recognition. Doom by Job for a Cowboy. This album is very nostalgic for me. I remember when I was a really young kid, I'd go to the mall with my mom and grandma. Everybody'd be going to their own different shops, and I would always go to Hot Topic because they had the listening stations where you could just pop on the headphones and listen to an entire album if you wanted to. When this album came out, I was just starting to really, like, get into metal, but it was your typical, like, Slayer, Anthrax, Metallica, Pantera, whatever. This was a completely new deal for me. I remember Entombment for a Machine, that scream. I almost threw my headphones off because I didn't expect it. It's such a great album. It's so heavy. I know they're working on new music now as well, and I would love to see this in my hands at some point soon. 3 years ago, it was repressed on Metal Blade Records, and unfortunately, it sold out. I hope it gets a repress soon so that it gets into the hands of more fans, new fans, or people curious about this band. Next up, Life's Not Out to Get You by Neck Deep. I love pop punk, but I'm not super into, like, searching for new bands. I just don't go out of my way to find it. So when I discovered Neck Deep, I really clung to this album and then went back to their older stuff, but this is such a cool album. Can't Kick Up the Roots is just, it's so catchy, it's so good, and it's just a really fun listen because it's not too self-serious, it's jokey enough, but it's not a parody. It's just a cool album by a really great band, and a great live band as well. And next up we have the opposite side of that coin with Copacetic by Knuckle Puck. Yes, the self-serious guys from Chicago, Illinois, who got upset about Jared Alonji making a joke about their name being pronounced Kanuklapook instead of Knuckle Puck. That being said, I would still love to own this and see it play on my turntable because it is such a great album, and they are a great band. I think they've grown up a little bit since then, I would hope anyway. I would say check out Evergreen if you're looking to see what Knuckle Puck is all about, and then move through the album from there, because that's such a cool song and it's such a great representation of what they do. Ah yes, now we're getting into my early teenage years. Plagues by The Devil Wears Prada. So there was a point in time when Walmart and Target had, like, a huge CD section, and there was actually some vinyl in there. But I remember going to Target and seeing Plagues and From Roots with Roots Above and Branches Below on the shelf and being like, I need to buy both of these. And I'm so happy that I did, because these albums are so nostalgic for me. They're so good too. They hold up really well. Maybe not the names so much, like HTML Rules Dude and Hey John, What's Your Name Again and Reptar King of the Ozone are a bit dated. They're a bit of the time, but the music behind those titles is so cool. It's so good. It's so heavy. It's really worth checking out. Hey John, What's Your Name Again off this album. And I think I got the copy of Plagues with like the bonus DVD that like shows their entire like beginning part from like what's their first album? Anyway, but it shows their like process from that first album to Plagues. That was a really cool package. Next up, as mentioned before, with Roots Above and Branches Below. This is just a little bit more refined. The Devil Wears Prada, Assistant to the Regional Manager, is still one of my favorite songs of all time. It's just so perfect. It's so pretty. It's so heavy. It's so cool. That's the song to listen to kind of get a feel for what this album is, and I want to find it. That needs a repress. I am demanding it. Sean's self-titled album. I mean, what do you say about Sean? They're so good. It's like Gran Turismo music and then jazz, but also rock and then math rock, and they're just really cool. Check out Ghost off of this album. As previously stated, I am a gigantic Ween fan, and I think that Quebec is a really cool album. I love the song Chocolate Town on this one, but it's a really like cool album because it showcases their amazing musical talent while also keeping that Ween goofiness and hopping around from genre to genre. Happy Colored Marbles haunts my dreams. I would say listen to Chocolate Town off of this. It's not going to give you a good feel for what this album is, but it's a great song. 12 Golden Country Greats by Ween. This album is all one genre. It's the only genre that Ween have decided, hey, we're going to stick to one like type of music, and that's country, which is so weird because they had never really done any country stuff before this, but they do it so well. And they hired what they called the Shit Creek Boys, but it was actually just like a collective of some of the best musicians that Nashville had to offer, as well as the Jordanaires, who were like Elvis's backup singers, as well as like quite a few other people. And this is just like a really cohesive country album, and it's really good too. It's a little blue, but it's fantastic. Next up is Alive by Meshuggah. I think that this live album is really important to their discography, and I feel like they would agree. When you listen to Chaosphere and like New Millennium Cyanide Christ on that album, it's so thin, there's no low end. It kind of like it kind of like neuters the song a little bit. But with this live version, you get all the bass you could possibly want, and they are so just like tight live that it doesn't matter whether it's in the studio or live, because the performance is just so good. I would say check that one out or Bleed. Next up, Obzen by Meshuggah. I remember staying up late when I was really young and watching Headbangers Ball on MTV2, and the music video for Bleed would come on and scared the hell out of me because I hated horror when I was younger. Now I love it. But that music video is really intense, and this is a band that I've grown to love over the years, and they are so very talented at what they do. Check out Combustion off of this album. I think that's a relatively underrated song when it comes to Obzen, and it's worth listening to. Paradise Valley by John Mayer. This is right after he moved to Montana to kind of like get away from everything, and also right after Born and Raised came out, which is my favorite era of John Mayer. Like, those two albums are so solid because he kind of embraces more of his Americana roots in his music. And so I would say Wildfire or Dear Marie off of this album are so good, but this is just a nice, easy listening album, and it's beautifully made. Like, his musicianship just really shines on this album. Coward by Haste the Day. This is a really cool album because Haste the Day has gone through so many lineup changes, as well as like two very distinctive singers. They all got together and did this album as kind of a comeback after Attack of the Wolf King, which is also one of my records that I would really like to own. And it's a really cool collaborative effort between all of the members of the band. Some very little and some were very heavily involved, but I would love to own this because I also think it's a really, really solid record too. Next up, Ecclesia by For Today. I remember listening to this like right when it came out on somebody's iPod in like art class in middle school, and it just blew my mind. I had never heard anything like it, that style of like metal. It was so cool and so new to me that it is easily one of my White Whale albums because it's so like, it's such a special record to me. Agape is definitely worth listening to on that album if you're looking for something heavy. Next up, Portraits by For Today. This is their album right after Ecclesia. I've been a massive fan ever since. I actually have a Portraits tattoo hidden somewhere on my body that I will not disclose. And this is just a really, really good, heavy, awesome album. Next up, Breaker by For Today. They went a little bit more, they leaned heavily into spoken word pieces on this album, which I actually really like. The musicianship is fantastic on this album, and this was their last release on Face Down Records. And in my opinion, the best the band ever was on Face Down Records. They did a lot of good stuff after too, but I really, really like that era of their music. Next up, Waiting for Morning to Come by Being as an Ocean. Now, specifically, I want a first pressing of this album because now about 6 months after this album came out, 6 months to a year, they changed it. The song Dissolve had a very hard-hitting like bridge, and they took Joel's like aggressive shouting and instead made it where he was speaking softly, and I think it kind of gutted the song a little bit. So I want a first pressing because I want that version of the song. You can't really find it anywhere. I think it might be on YouTube somewhere, but it's so much better. And I think that's why I have to have this album, this specific pressing of this album. Next up, It Hates You by He Is Legend. I missed out on this. I missed out on the pre-order earlier this year. I didn't see it. Just like the I Am Hollywood one, I missed out on this one as well. I've been dropping the ball on my He Is Legend pressings. But I really want this one because Primary Blues is my favorite He Is Legend song. I think it's Skylar's voice at its absolute best. The band is so phenomenal. It's just all very good. So It Hates You is definitely something that I need. Volume 1 by CKY. This is another one for me that's so nostalgic because I remember being just a little kid and hearing 96 Quite Bitter Beings on Jackass when I was watching that late at night. And this entire album is actually so solid. Like, it really is. Disengage the Simulator is actually, I would say, a better song than 96 Quite Bitter Beings. It's just really, really cool. This whole album is just chock full of really catchy, good hard rock songs. Shigeo Sekito, Special Music Volume 1. This is a really cool album because it's like 1975 electone jazz from Japan, and he was a really innovative composer, and he's still doing stuff now, I believe. But this is just a really cool album that is definitely worth checking out. I can't give a specific song recommendation because I don't speak Japanese. I think track 2 is called The Word, and that's the one that if you've heard anything from him, you've probably heard that song, and it's really, really good. Whiteout by the Shivas. This is another band that I discovered working at Zoomies, and I just really dig them. They have a really cool sound. It's garage rock from Portland. This album specifically is just really lo-fi and unique sounding. I think it's just a really solid album, and it's worth adding to yours and my collection. Absolutes by Barcelona. Somebody just took my iPod from me and just plugged it into their computer, downloaded this album onto it, and I've just always been so thankful because it's such a cool, really, really chill album. And yeah, I mean, Barcelona is great. I don't think they're doing anything anymore, but this is a fantastic album. And lastly, Bang Bang by Dispatch. This is just such a fun, cool surf rock album it's something that you'd play on the beach. I mean, it's surf rock, but it's something that you'd play on the beach, something you'd play at a cookout, just to have a good time and feel good. This is such a great sunny day soundtrack. Thanks so much for watching, everybody. I have new videos coming out every single Saturday, normally record reviews, and the LP Weekly coming out on Tuesday, so you don't miss when your favorite records get repressed. Remember, leave a comment, what are your top 3 White Whale records? And don't forget to subscribe to the channel so you don't miss when new videos are coming out. And remember, until the table stops spinning, just keep grinning.